Welcome guys, today we're going to look at carving XPS or extruded polystyrene foam, and it's what we've used to make this rock wall for the Rockingham Model Railway Group. It's quite a big layout, so it's quite a big wall and it took quite a bit of time. We carved it using some basic tools and then some paint washes and a bit of flocking to achieve. The trick with this was that the structure was already existing, like this plaster rock wall and this bridge here with this little river. It didn't seem to go anywhere, so we had to try to blend in what we did to the existing structure and then create some sort of diversion for where this water is going to go. So we used the same process. We made a little bit of a rock wall down here to act as a boundary to the creek to make it flow along, and then we're putting it out a tunnel via a little bit of a waterfall. So the good thing about carving rocks is that no two areas will be the same. Where you're using plaster rocks and you've got a limited number of molds, you'll get repetition unless you adjust it. This little area here right now is a plaster cast rock wall, and this next to it is the foam, which I've cut to try to blend it in to meet it. You can see the lines that have been cut into the foam like here. They add to a little bit of realism, so do the pock marks, and the faces are made with a plunge sword to actually create the cleavage planes like you would find in a real rock. XPS or extruded polystyrene foam is a dense foam. It's not like the other polystyrene with the little white balls that get everywhere. What this enables you to do is carve it and cut it with a smooth face, and that's what we need for the rocks. You can't really get the same effect with polystyrene. So let's have a look now at how we actually carve. Many tools can be used, and it's really up to yourself. This is just using an extended blade on a hobby knife, and what we're doing is just actually carving away the smooth face of the rock to release the texture underneath it. And you can just go wild with this. You can make your own mind up. What I like to do is create a fault line and then work off that fault line. You can pull bits off, you can break bits. Breaking it will give a different texture to the smooth, and this is how we put those sort of fault lines in. We just carve it, and then when you snap it, it will snap off more along that fault line. You can see the basic texture that's coming up here. So after we've taken the initial surface off to give us a nice smooth face of the rock, we then use the knife in a few different ways to actually create the texture that we want. So we've created a plane here, and now what I'm doing is just chunking out parts here to give that sort of cubic effect where a big chunk of rock would have fallen off the actual face. Then I just follow along my fault line that I put in before, and I just keep repeating the process. So other tools we use are anything with a pair of jaws that you can grab some of the foam and just pluck it out. It gives you those little holes, little caves in the rock, indentations. You can use large tweezers, small tweezers. You can take little chunks out, big chunks out. You can just play. Experimental is really what you want to be doing here, to find out what works for you and what you like the look of. Repetition and small bits, I think, are the key when you're doing small areas like this. So you can go back and you can just enhance what you've already done, or if you don't like it, you can redo it. Just take some more foam out and do that. But you just keep repeating the process until you're happy with the end result. There's many different tools you can use. It's a case of what you've got available. For me, I like this. It's a vibrating plunge saw that you'd use for plaster. I've smoothed off the teeth a little more, so it's not quite so aggressive. And all that I do once it's going is I literally run it down the face of the foam, and what this does is it peels off that up to 1 inch square, and by angling the blade you can get the angles on the cleavage faces that you like. And this is how I did the majority of this wall and how I got the main effect, as you can see here. You can actually see that effect starting to work. Of course, it's also always easier if you've got the foam fixed. You don't only have vertical cleavage planes, but you have horizontal ones as well, so you can use the saw for them too. Also great for putting in ridges, ledges, all those sort of features that you find in a rock. Here, just from a different angle, the same technique, but what we're doing is we're matching it into that little bit of foam work that we did that you saw previously with the knife. You can see it's much quicker, but you can get the basic structure done quite easily, match it in, get your lines fold up, and then just play. After roughly cutting it in, this is how it looked and matched up. Rock walls don't generally just sit on a single vertical plane, especially if you're modelling something like a cutting or a quarry. The walls are always stepped back in what they call benches, and this is what I'm doing here, is just taking off that very top layer, which gives it a little step down to the next layer, and that way I can sort of step the wall down and give it a basic angle. Otherwise, too vertical and I don't think it looks right. So after roughly cutting it in, we just go back, neaten it up a little bit, change small areas at a time. Here we're pulling a bit more foam out to create some of those little pock marks in the face. I'm putting in those very thin fault lines that show up once you've done the painting. They really do actually make a difference to the detail, I think. You know, chunking out a bit more foam, you just go back, you look at it and say, oh, I don't like that area, let's do something there. Let's take a bit more foam out, let's cut it back. You just constantly looking at it and reappraising it and redoing it, and ultimately you'll get there. One of the last steps that I do before starting to look at painting is just to give it a basic sand with a sanding block. Gets rid of all those little fluffy bits and sort of smooths the edges off a little bit, so give it a little bit of that weathered appearance. Don't overdo this stage. If you round them off too much, then it starts to look unnatural again, so then you can always go back in and recarve them. So just, again, whatever you think is a fair thing at the time. So it's been fairly brief, but this is a closer look at where we're up to at this stage. You know, we've got some faces there, we've got some cleavage, we've got some details happening. Even at this stage, it's starting to actually look pretty good. It's a do the process, repeat the process, do the process, repeat the process, and constantly evaluating whether you're happy with what you are. You may just want to take a little bit off here or a little bit off there. Again, this is that flicking the chunks out to give you those angles, and you can really see here the good effect that actually gives on your wall or your rock. One thing I will mention is that while you're doing your carving, especially towards the end here, you just need to keep in the back of your mind, where does the water go? Because when rain hits these rock faces, it's going to flow. That flow is going to increase the weathering and make some of your features of the rock more pronounced. It will round off other areas. So kind of have a think of that in the back of your mind as you're going. As for painting, I generally use washes, start off with the black and then my greys and my lighter features. And I thought I'd just end off with an overall view of the rock wall that we did for the Rockingham Model Railway Group. Check out their Facebook. It was quite extensive, and that's that little waterfall there that's going to be. And again, thanks for watching. Like, dislike, subscribe, any comments, please let me know. It's the only way that I get feedback. And again, thanks.